Hey, everybody. It is May 15th, the market update desk with Scott Riley, NMLS 157524. We're back in the studios today to do the video. There was one interesting thing that came out on CNBC this morning, which really caught my attention, and I think isn't quite getting the play that it should, but I think it will in the not too long term. So, Chairman Powell gave an interview yesterday where he talked about the Fed is going to look at changing its framework. Now, their framework really hasn't been revised since 2020. That's the design, goal, and direction that the Fed uses to encompass what they're working on. Specifically, that the goal of the Fed is a 2% 2% inflation rate. Now, we've talked about it before. This magical 2% number that they always talk about really was anything to be intended to be concrete and a guidepost. Um, Former Secretary Yellen, when she was on the Fed, was listening to an offhand comment from then Fed President or Chairman Greenspan. Talked about, yeah, we need to look at 2%. It was never written in stone. It was never a guidepost. It was a discussion point. Then all of a sudden it became Fed lower and Fed goal to have 2% inflation. So very interesting. They started to come out and they gave some rationale behind it. Maybe we're in a different marketplace. That 2% really isn't a maintainable or realistic goal for inflation based on global and geopolitical things, that maybe they need to relook at that. We talked about this maybe a year ago. The 2% probably isn't realistic and a applicable number in today's world. So that was very interesting on these comments that Chairman Powell indicated. And for almost 5 full years to go by before they're changing this framework shows that the Fed is always playing from behind. They're never playing from ahead. That's why we think this summer there will be a rate decrease. So I wanted to cover that first. Now, the data that came out today, National Association of Home Builders came out with their home buying index. Their builder index that shows that the total index decreased by 6 points from 40 to 35. Current sales index decreased by 8 points to 37. Sales expectations only decreased by 1 point, and that's to 42 index. And the buyer traffic decreased by 2 points. Now, what's interesting is this is nationally, but when they broke down the regions, specifically the Midwest was the least decline of all the different regions, just showing that real estate's local, not national. Stocks today, kind of, not really flat, but they're down. Dow's down 230. S&P started out down 23. Mortgage bonds were rallying to start the day in pre-market at up 22. Very interesting to watch that. Retail sales, that's a big one that came out today, rose by 1/10 in April, better than expectations of flat at 0%. Last month's figure was also revised higher from 1.4 to 1.7. Not too much of a change, but slight. Now, the important control group, which strips out auto and gas and building materials, decreased by 0.2%, which was below the expectations of a 0.3 increase. And also, the control group's prior numbers were revised higher from plus 0.4% to plus 0.5%, so 1/10. Looks like we're still seeing some pull ahead activity within retail sales. We'll watch that close as potential tariff effects start to show up in the June report for May. Initial jobless claims were pretty flat. Those were only an increase of 1,000 to 229,000. Continuing claims increased 9,000 to 1.881. That was a little lower than expected at 1.990, but that's been pretty consistent over the last 6 or 8 months of where the continuing claims are. It just shows that people getting laid off after they're on the initial claims are having a hard time finding employment. It's taking longer and longer, is what the data is showing. Now, we did get the counterpart to CPI today. We got PPI, the producer price index, which measures wholesale inflation. Wow, there's a little bit of a surprise. We saw the headline PPI down 0.5%, not up, but down a negative number. Now, this was well below the expectations of plus 0.2% increase. Now, on the year over year, PPI decreased an entire 1%. Now, that was from an upwardly revised figure of 3.4% all the way down to 2.4%. Now, that's lower than the market estimates of 2.6%. Now, core PPI, which strips out volatile food and energy, decreased by 0.4 and was below the expectations by 1/10 of 0.3. Year over year, core PPI decreased by 0.9% to 3.1% from 4%. Those are big decreases we're seeing in wholesale activity. One of the sub reports I read showed that one of the reasons for this big decrease is wholesalers are taking a larger effect of the tariff hit rather than passing it on to consumers. So while we may see lower right now, the May report coming out in June will be very, very important. Industrial capacity report came out today and showed that capacity was greater, meaning less items are being produced. We'll see what effects that has long term also. So right now we're watching real close. We saw yesterday the 10-year treasury popped above an extremely important level of 4.5. We're seeing a little bit of retrenchment to that. We fell below 4.5, which is good. 4.52 actually is a very, very critical resistance line that we're watching very, very closely. So we'll keep our eyes on that. It's we're getting really busy with borrowers, with purchases and refinance. Give us a call. We'll help run some numbers, show you why now is a great time to buy. If you're looking to refinance, consolidate debt, significantly improve your cash flow, we'll show you how to do that while paying off your mortgage faster. Give us a call, 616-293-2189. The Market Update Desk with Scott Riley. Take care.